Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give everyone just a few minutes to join. We're glad you're with us. This is Claire Cox. I'm chair of Georgia STOMP, and we welcome you to Georgia STOMP Ignites the Capital. We're still letting folks in, and we are glad you're here this morning. While we're getting started, I've got a few fun poll questions for everybody. So sign in the chat during this part, put your name, your pronouns. If you've got an organizational affiliation, you can put that and your location, because I know we're in different parts of Georgia, and with Ignite joining us this morning, we may be in different parts of the country. So name, pronouns, organizational affiliation, if any, and location. And while we're doing that, here's our first poll question. If you're just joining us, sign in the chat with your name, your pronouns, your organizational affiliation, if you have any, and your location. And we're doing a couple of fun poll questions while everybody joins us this morning. We get going. I'm going to close this one off pretty quick here. I can tell you we don't have anybody that loves the cold. Let's look at what we got. Got a bunch of summer people, it looks like. All right, if you missed the first one, here comes the next poll. If you're just joining us, we are signing in the chat with our names and pronouns, our organizational affiliation, if you have one, and your location of where you are. And doing some fun polls while we're waiting. Boy, we're split like 50-50 on this one. I'll give y'all just a few more minutes to see. Has COVID brought you anything good? All right, let's finish up this one. All right, I'm gonna close this number. Oh, we got a couple more coming in. Real quick, answer it. All right, let's look at what the results are of this one. Everybody loves Zoom. I gotta admit, I like being connected across the state and the country. Bunch of good books. No gardeners in this group. All right, let's do the last one. This one gets a little bit more on subject. You're still joining us, or if you haven't yet, please sign in the chat. We'd love to give a chance for everybody to see where each other's from, if you're with an organization, feel free to connect across the chat with somebody else. You know, that's one of the great things about Georgia STOMP is we connect across the state and stay in touch with each other. All right, I'm gonna give this poll just a few more seconds. We're spread out in all 5 of them, but there's a front runner here. Okay, if you hadn't answered, I'm gonna end it now. And we got a lot of folks with cramps, it looks like. It's the worst. Oh, I didn't share. There we go. There's the share. We still have people coming in. Good morning and welcome. We are so glad you're here for Georgia Stomp Ignites the Capitol. We'll keep letting folks in as they come. This is Georgia Stomp's virtual day at the Capitol, and we are so excited this year to co-host it with one of our member organizations, Ignite National. And as we go along, you'll get to know more about them and see some of the resources that they've been able to share with us this year. So we appreciate that. Glad everybody's here. Want to remind you, if you hadn't signed in, to do so. I want to tell you a little bit. I'm hoping most of you know, and so this may be a refresher, but for new folks that may be with us this morning. Hang on, got to share my document here. Want to give you a little bit of introduction to Georgia Stomp and tell you about our organization. Georgia Stomp is a statewide coalition of organizations formed to address the issues of menstrual equity and period poverty in Georgia. We believe that a general lack of understanding about women's menstrual needs have led to inequities not just in our tax base, but in institutions and public spaces across the state. Our work began when one woman here in Macon, Georgia, asked, why are we paying sales tax on menstrual products in Georgia? From there, we have grown to more than 30 organizations with a reach approaching 60,000 in Georgia. These are advocacy organizations, period supply groups, service organizations, professional organizations, and organizations that equip young women to be leaders or elected officials like Ignite. We are also affiliated with numerous outstanding researchers in public health, particularly menstrual health and education at Emory, Kennesaw State, UGA. We're supported by a great number of legislators in both parties, and you'll meet some of those this morning. I'm really excited to see a few of them. If I start calling names, I may miss somebody in the chat, but we've got a couple that have joined us already. Perhaps the leading key to our success is that we have I'm having to let people in at the same time. Perhaps the leading key to our success is that we have good working relationships with many state agencies, the Department of Education, the Department of Public Health, Department of Corrections, and Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency, and have been able to make progress and have good contact with folks in those areas because of those good working relationship. Currently, Georgia Stomp has 5 pillars of our work. The equity issue of the sales tax. Women should not be forced to pay sales tax and support the state budget to the tune of $9 million a year on something about which we have no choice, is a medical necessity, and for which there is no male equivalent. We believe the tax is discriminatory and should be eliminated based on the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. The next 3 pillars relate to period poverty and access. Access for individuals detained in prison, access for those experiencing situational poverty following a natural disaster, and access affecting attendance at school because of poverty in the home. And the 5th pillar, the more we've worked in this space, the more we realize how little information the general public has. So we've added a focus on advancing an understanding of menstrual equity in the state of Georgia. We do this through webinars we've held, for example, jointly with Department of Education and Georgia Association of School Nurses. We do this through Facebook Live events or advocacy days. We do this through something called Candid Conversations, which are just great stigma buster events that we host throughout the state, and mostly have been virtual. So if you don't know about them, reach out and ask about them. We do this through letters to state leadership. At this point, I want to introduce Christina Williams. She is Ignite's fellow in Georgia, to tell us about Ignite and bring greetings from them.
Good morning and welcome and hello to everyone. Thank you for coming. And again, it's Christina Williams. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the Atlanta Fellow for Ignite National. So Ignite is a national nonpartisan organization and movement that empowers young women to become the next generation of political leaders. We deliver programs in high schools and colleges to provide political and civic education, exposure to women in political leadership, hands-on training opportunities, and a peer network of women who support and nurture each other's aspirations. At Ignite, we envision a world where young women own their political power and use their voices and unique experiences to better their communities. We've proven what is possible when powerful, eager young women are given the tools and resources to step up in their communities. And so just a few notes about our impact. 98% of eligible Ignite women voted in the November 2020 election, which is amazing. Over 60% of Ignite women volunteer or worked an average of 40 to 50 hours on campaigns during the 2020 election cycle. And 3 times as many Ignite women definitely plan to run for office in the future compared to their non-Ignite peers. And with that, I'll pass it back to Claire.
Great, thank you for that. I was looking forward to see if one of our representatives has joined us yet, and he hasn't quite, so we will move on and come back to that. Lauren, I'm also looking, we may be a little early. Is Stella and Ariba here? Lauren, I'm gonna unmute you, or will you?
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm just looking to see if Stella and Ariba are on the call.
And I'm not seeing either of them right now, so we may have to do a little judgment of our schedule here. We've got different parts of the schedule that folks are joining us for. Maybe.
Claire, I'm sorry. Claire, did you call me? I had to jump on another call. I'm sorry.
No, not yet,
okay,
Representative Schofield, but welcome this morning, and we'll get to that panel with you at 9:30 is our intention. So
thank you. Oh, good. Thanks.
No problem. No problem. We're glad you're here. And I think since I've got a part here and I'm not seeing some of the different parts of people here for some of the other parts, I think we'll go ahead and jump down to what we were going to do about 9 o'clock. And I'll go through Georgia STOMP priorities right now. And then we can loop back. I see Stella is just coming in. And she is joining us from her high school. So we'll want to watch that schedule. She was able to step out of class for that. But we'll give Ariba just a minute to get here. I don't see her here. Adele, I'm going to make you co-host. Let me find you and make you co-host. And y'all forgive us for some logistical things here.
Perfect. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you co-host, and can you watch for Ariba coming in and just interrupt me if she does, but I'm gonna start on a couple of our, and that may be her right there. We'll see. If it is, we will go back to Lauren for her part. Were you able to tell that? All right, I'm gonna start because we can stop this. Stella, we see you're here this morning. We're waiting on Ariba right now, and as soon as she joins us, we'll jump back to that portion of the program. But let me go ahead and start and give an overview of Georgia STOMP's 2022 legislative priorities is what I want to mention for right now. We have, you've heard a little bit about how Georgia Stomps come together and our history and some of the things we work on. In the 2022 legislature, we have 3 priorities for this year, and they've grown out of the work and the successes over the last 4.5 years. We've got some successes we're trying to build on, but we still have some hurdles to cross in some of the other areas. And so the first priority is what has been true since the very beginning of Georgia Stomp. First and foremost, Georgia Stomp exists to eliminate the sales tax on menstrual products. We have introduced a bill every year since 2018 for this purpose. And this year's bill is House Bill 810. The bill seeks to remove state sales tax 4% on menstrual products in Georgia. Tax elimination on period products is a bipartisan effort throughout the country, and we have had bipartisan support in Georgia since our first year. We also have strong opposition from House leadership, and that's just a fact. I want to drop, and I'll do that in just a minute, talking points for HB 810 in the chat, that I'll do that. They include that period products are not optional purchases and are required for good health. These FDA Class 2 medical devices are unavoidable necessities. There's no male equivalent. This is an issue of discrimination and inequity that can be solved with less than 0.02% effect on the state budget. This tax is assessed primarily on women who are already financially disadvantaged in our state. 1 in 5 women live in poverty in Georgia. That's 20% versus 12% of men. And 2/3 of minimum wage jobs in Georgia are held by women. Women in Georgia make 81% of what men make. So menstrual products should be exempt from state taxes like groceries, prescriptions, personal medical devices, hearing aids, and prosthetics. We believe this tax is discriminatory and should be eliminated. So you'll know where this bill stands right now. HB 810 is assigned to the Ways and Means Committee. We need a hearing, and right now they are not inclined to do it. As background, both other tax elimination bills received a hearing, but bills need 2 hearings and a vote to get out of committee. And so that's kind of our mantra this year, is we need 2 hearings and a vote. And you'll find out some more specifics about how to do this later in the meeting. Our next, and Adele, make sure and interrupt me if we need to. Our next priority is, whereas many state legislators don't feel the need to eliminate the sales tax on period products, they have heard, or most have heard, the message that Georgia Stomp communicates about period poverty and its effect on attendance in school and on the health of menstruators. Most of you are aware that beginning in 2019, that's the FY 2020 budget, the legislature allocated funding for schools. We've experienced a roller coaster of ups and downs of the funding due to austerity cuts in the beginning and then state cuts because of COVID. But last year's legislature allocated the largest appropriation to date for the Department of Education, funding FY 22 at $1.25 million for the Department of Education. And those funds are being rolled out to school nurses in schools, right now, beginning back in July. Georgia Stomp works very closely with school nurses throughout the state. Each January, we conduct a poll to understand how the funding is being used, its sufficiency in meeting needs, and a lot of other feedback. In the most recent survey of school nurses in Georgia that was conducted this January, last month, nearly 80% of those responding believe that funding is needed for 5th graders, and almost 50% responded 4th graders should also be included. So to be clear, the current budget line item does not prohibit provision of products to lower grades, but the allotment calculations by the Department of Education are based on students in 6th through 12th. And that process excludes many schools serving only elementary students, and it strains the existing funding allotment which is not adequate already to cover the needs. So if the state is to provide products for 5th graders, additional funding is needed. We are asking for a modest increase this year in the FY23 allocation, which is the budget, the big budget this year that they'll work on, which will allow funding for fifth graders at the same per student level that the older grades are currently receiving, which would be a $200,000 increase. This appropriation would ensure more students are in class and performing at their potential. And the last priority for Georgia STOMP this year, in 2019, when money was placed in the FY20 budget for the Department of Education, money was also allocated to the Department of Public Health for provision of products in local county health departments. The timing of this was actually a little terrible, even though it was a really good thing that happened. When COVID hit in early 2020, the Department of Public Health had little time to focus on the rollout of a new allocation. Much of the funding was not spent, and as a result, the legislature zeroed the line item. Last session, we successfully argued and got a limited amount of funding allocated back into that line item, $200,000, and that was a great victory and gave us another chance at this work. So while we recognize women are not the only ones who menstruate, the pandemic continues to disproportionately affect women due to the vulnerability of their place in the workforce. Again, we realize there are exceptions, but women are also the parent who is also most often out of work when students return to virtual learning or children are home from daycare because of COVID exposure in the classrooms. These products are needed in the best of times, but never as much as today. So to date, the Department of Public Health has not been able to stock the supplies in a consistent manner such that districts can communicate period product availability and ensure the stock is on the shelves at local county health departments. Georgia STOMP has worked closely with the Department of Public Health to communicate the availability of the funds. Dr. Toomey herself recently focused on this issue in her meeting with district directors. What we need from the legislature is a consistent level of funding sufficient enough for local departments to implement this program. So we are asking the legislature to return funding to the pre-pandemic level of $500,000, which is an increase in the line item over its current allocation of $300,000. This appropriation would ensure administrators throughout the state are able to remain healthy and are allowed to be productive members of our society. So those are Georgia STOMP's three priorities for this year. First of all, Adele, I'd like, has Representative or Chairman Stevens joined the meeting?
I have not seen him join yet. And so
Okay.
it may be that we can, I'll defer to you on where we jump to next in our program.
I think we need to return back to Lauren. Lauren, she spoke a minute ago, is Ignite Southeast Region Program Manager. And she's going to have a conversation with the voice of young women advocating in Georgia. So Lauren, I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Claire. It's an honor to be here. I had the pleasure of hearing from Stella Kwan a couple weeks ago in our menstruation conversation, and she really did blow me away, and I wanted us to have the opportunity to hear from her and her fight to end period poverty. Stella Kwan is the co-founder and president of La Lune, and I just want to welcome you here today. Thank you so much for being here, Stella.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be invited and hear sort of everything that Georgia STOMP is doing. And I am currently at school right now, which is why I am wearing a mask. If I have to step out for a bit, that might be why. But I'm so glad to be here with everybody.
Thank you for letting us know that. Remind me, Stella, you're a senior in high school right now?
Yes, yep.
Awesome. Very impressive. Well, first, tell us some background information about you. Where are you from? And tell us a little bit about the school you attend.
Yeah, I am Korean American. I grew up in Georgia for most of my life, and I attend Brookwood High School, which is a part of Gwinnett County. And it's a very large like public school with about like 4,000 students. So
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. How have you contributed to ending period poverty?
yeah, so ever since 2018, my group of co-founders and I co-founded Laloon, which is a nonprofit dedicated to empowering menstruators through the delivery of period packages and educational content. And so, as of sort of February of 2022, we have delivered over 32,000 menstrual products, just internationally, whether it's from like Atlanta or all the way in Cambodia or the Dominican Republic. Like we deliver from a vast array of places, and we also sort of share educational content about what menstruation is, what period poverty is, how to sort of help and address period poverty on the local level, and just sort of, I guess, ending period poverty, joining advocacy groups like Georgia Stomp, and having those, face-to-face conversations with people in my everyday life as well. So yeah, super excited to talk about it.
That's awesome, Stella. Can you tell us a bit more about what really motivated you and your co-founders to start your movement?
Yeah, so my co-founders and I are all low-income high school students. And so we all sort of just got together and we found that a similar talking point that all of us shared and experience that we shared, was just sort of menstruating and just like what that looks like, and what it looks like as a low income student, and like going to school and also just like with our families, and we found that it was an issue that extended far beyond us as well. It wasn't just us that was dealing with this, and once we researched into it we discovered that the problem was far greater than we would have ever imagined, and that was sort of what motivated me and them to also just start researching and getting to know more about ways that we can help.
That's so awesome. And what are your hopes for future menstruators in Georgia? And what are your nonprofit's plans on next steps?
Yeah, well, I hope that future menstruators in Georgia can all have equal access. And I think that that's something that Georgia Stomp is doing such a great job with, advocating for that removal of that 4% sales tax. It might seem like a trivial matter, but it can make a world of a difference, to menstruators in the state of Georgia. And just that people in schools and students can pursue their education, their careers without being inhibited by this, basic need not being fulfilled. And so it's super exciting. We recently installed like 4 menstrual product dispensers here in Brookwood, and so hopefully that can sort of take off, and be something that we can see more regularly in not only like public schools, but in just public facilities in general, for people in Georgia.
That's wonderful. Honestly, Stella, you and your work just blow me away. And I know a lot of us would like to hear some advice from you on how others can join the movement.
Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. I would say, I think that even just by being here, that is sort of taking that first step, that first initiative of hearing and learning about the issue, and researching it and talking to people about it. Some of my greatest like discoveries and favorite moments have been through talking with people. I've made numerous friends in this sphere, like just so many mentors to learn from. And so I don't think I'm in a position to really give any advice. I'm just like in high school and stuff like that, but definitely just trying our best, all trying to destigmatize the conversation, and trying to, I guess, advocate for this greater goal, of trying to make sure that menstruation doesn't become a hindrance, on life, because it really should be celebrated rather than stigmatized or anything like that.
Yes, that's so, so important. I love what you said about celebrating menstruation rather than stigmatizing that. That definitely resonates with me quite a bit. And that leads me to my more personal question. Would you consider yourself an advocate? Why? If so, why? And if not, why?
I guess that is sort of a loaded question. I would say that I consider myself an advocate, but it depends on what the definition is. I mean, there are plenty of people who are doing far greater things. So in that regard, it seems kind of tricky to consider myself an advocate. But in terms of believing in this issue and wanting to voice and support the movement, in those regards, I definitely consider myself an advocate. But it's so inspiring to see everybody who is doing amazing stuff, and it makes me want to do a better job at everything.
That's so awesome, Stella. I'm so moved, and we're getting so many affirming messages in the chat, that a lot of people can't believe you're in high school, and that, yeah, you're more qualified to give us advice, and you're definitely an advocate. So kudos to you. I know I would like to hear what your future plans are, your personal.
Yeah, I am a senior in high school, and so sort of like college and everything is sort of the next chapter of my life. And so I have committed to Harvard College to attend in the fall. And so I will be out of state, but we are um, going to continue sort of expanding our branches here in Georgia. I believe that we even have like a chapter to be set up in UGA, and everything like that. And so I'm definitely still going to be on all these Zoom calls, and trying to be as involved as possible and coming home for every break and everything like that.
I love to hear that. Congratulations on your admittance to Harvard. That's so impressive. And I'm so excited to see all the moves that you make after high school. Because I mean, you're really showing young people, young menstruators, that they can start early, that they can start in their high schools. And I'm very, very proud of you. Thank you so much for sharing this conversation with me. Is there anything that you want to leave us with before we close out for today?
Just thank you guys so much for inviting me, and to just sort of speak and listen. I wouldn't sort of know all about this sphere if it wasn't for organizations like Georgia Stomp and Ignite and just sort of all the incredible work that you guys are doing. And so thank you for all the nice comments as well. You guys are all just equally, if not more, impressive. So thank you.
Well, the honor is all ours. Thank you so much, Stella. And thank you all for listening in to this fireside chat with the incredible Stella Kwan. I'll
Thank you.
pass it back.
Yeah, well, hang on with us just a minute, Laura. And thank you, Stella. That was just, you always are so inspiring, and we appreciate you and your teacher for letting you step out of class and be with us today. So thanks. Lauren, why don't you take just a moment and tell about your work with Ignite in Georgia and your connection here. Just take a moment and tell about you too.
Okay. Thank you, Claire, for making that time. I am Lauren Walter. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, but I came down to sunny Georgia for school. I attended Agnes Scott College. That's where I actually got in contact with Ignite through our college chapter. The existing fellow, Kirsten Jackson, the way she, was really committed to giving space to young women and young people to share what issues matter to them, where we're not, shut down or, belittled. It was a completely safe space. And from there, I was extremely excited to get involved in my chapter. And I remember we had a midterm election event where we watched the governor's race between Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. And I know everyone has a lot of memories on what happened there, but that really encouraged me to continue volunteering within the organization. I eventually took on a 2-year fellowship where I did a lot of work around getting out the vote, starting college chapters, including working with our wonderful Christina Williams, who is our current fellow, to start her chapter. She did all the heavy work, but I was just there to coach and help move things along. But ultimately, I'm just really grateful to have this position where I'm able to talk and connect with young women and young people on a daily basis, to be able to really take action, not only just have those conversations and have those trainings about important policy issues like period poverty, but really take action. And that's why I'm very excited for today's event, because we're going to have the opportunity to actually hear from legislators that are supporting this work and actually utilize the tools that we have here at Ignite on our advocate page to actually contact our own legislators and say, hey, you need to support this movement. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm in Atlanta, so if any of you want to reach out and connect, I'm always down for a Zoom or, a phone call. I'll drop my information in the chat. But thank you so much, Claire, for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about me.
Absolutely. You'll get a feel of why Georgia STOMP has been able to grow as a coalition, because we have so many amazing people that are a part of this work. And maybe I was a little bit ahead, but I'm going to introduce another one of those amazing people. Georgia STOMP over, and maybe I'll make a comment about this. Georgia STOMP in the last year has actually kind of changed a lot, in the sense that whereas we started out very grassroots movement in the state, we are still very connected throughout the state in a grassroots kind of fashion, but realized that there are some reasons that we needed to formalize that structure a little bit. And over the past year, we seated a board, wrote bylaws, and became a 501c3 organization so that we can better work with groups throughout the state and better do the work of advocacy in the state. And one of those fantastic people that agreed to join our board is Ashley James. She's with an organization, oh my gosh, Ashley, Atlanta Glow, forgive me for just a minute. She is the founder and president of Atlanta Glow. And Ashley, she is also the secretary on Georgia STOMP board. Ashley, if you are able to come on, I know she is juggling 2 small children. If you are able to come on and maybe take a moment, since we have a moment, and tell about Atlanta Glow, one of the member organizations, and then tell us what's happening at the Capitol today for Georgia STOMP. Even though we can't be there, things are happening.
Good morning, everyone. Ashley James, founder and executive director of Atlanta Glow. I am here, as Claire has mentioned, with 2 small children. So if you hear a small burp, I've got my 3-month-old here in my arms and a 3-year-old here who I'm bribing with YouTube Kids right now. But so happy to be here and support the work that Claire and Adele are doing with the Georgia STOMP Coalition, to be a part of both Atlanta Glow and our partnership with the Georgia STOMP Coalition has been a blessing over the last year. Atlanta Glow, and shout out to Lauren, I'm from Chicago too. But yes, I'm located in the Marietta area here in the Atlanta metro area now. Where Atlanta Glow is headquartered. And Atlanta Glow provides mentorship, life skills training, and leadership development for young ladies ages 14 to 25, roughly your high school and college age young ladies, early career as well, providing those services to them. We also have a period supply bank as we shift those young ladies into economic self-sustainability and stability. We look at things like period poverty and other barriers to their success. And so one of those strategies is our Period Plus program. And so that's how we connected with the Georgia STOMP Coalition. But to stick with the agenda, we are excited to share just something that's happening at the in the House chamber this morning, and that is that we have a House resolution that's being read in the well of the House chamber this morning, and so I'm going to just share that and read that with you all. So let's see. So this is a resolution recognizing February 8th, 2022 as Georgia STOMP Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas Georgia STOMP, which is the Georgia Stop Tax on Menstrual Products Coalition, is a statewide coalition of 31 organizations with a reach of more than 60,000, which was formed to address the issues of menstrual equity and period poverty in Georgia. And whereas the primary goal of this organization is to eliminate the 4% state sales tax Georgians are charged on medically necessary items they need to manage their periods with dignity. And whereas this tax is borne primarily by women who are already economically disadvantaged in our state, and whereas Georgia STOMP is committed to ensuring Georgians have access to the menstrual products they need, no matter where they are or what their situation is. And whereas the organization has worked with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency and Homeland Security Agency to improve access to menstrual products for those experiencing situation poverty following an emergency or disaster. Because of administrative changes, menstrual products were added to the list of basic needs, and GEMA and HAS funds can now be used to purchase such supplies in both the short and long term. And whereas Georgia STOMP has advocated for policy changes related to menstrual product access at Georgia Department of Corrections facilities, and products are now available pursuant to the DOC's feminine hygiene items issuance policy in every dorm within all female prisons, transitional centers, and probation detention centers. With the institution of this policy, protections now exist for women in the Federal Bureau of and the Georgia Department of Corrections, and thus Georgia STOMP has turned its focus to county and local jails and juvenile justice facilities. And whereas budget appropriations have been allocated to the Georgia Department of Education and the Georgia Department of Public Health to address period product needs in schools and in the community, increasing a student's ability to stay in class and improve the economy by workers having access to period products that keep them in the workplace. And whereas Georgia STOMP is to be applauded for its hard work and determination to effect positive change in policy that treats Georgia women with the dignity they deserve. Furthermore, STOMP has created an environment of greater acceptance and normalization of the natural, healthy nature of the important biological process of menstruation. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives that the members of this body recognize February 8th, 2022 as Georgia STOMP Day at the state capitol and commend the efforts of Georgia STOMP in promoting equity, addressing poverty, and restoring the dignity of women across the state of Georgia. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the House of Representatives is authorized and directed to make an appropriate copy of this resolution available for distribution to Georgia STOMP. And so that's the resolution that's being read in the well of the House chamber on today. And along with that is a copy of a pamphlet, which I believe a link is going to be placed in the chat. But we have here a link to this pamphlet, which is being placed on the desk of all the representatives in the House as well. So great sort of step and actions on behalf of Georgia STOMP being performed today in the House, and we're excited to share that with you this morning. And Claire, I'll pass it back to you to sort of facilitating questions around that.
Yeah, and I guess we could ask, does anybody have any questions around that? And do that. So I just got a message. Chairman Ron Stevens has been one of the strong supporters of this work since the very start, and we had hoped he was going to be able to join us this morning. He's signed every one of the bills, tax elimination bills since the beginning, and Adele may want to add a couple of more words about him from the very start when and if y'all don't know the story of Georgia Stomp, I was in Macon, Georgia, and Adele Stewart, who's going to come on in a minute, who's now vice chair of Georgia Stomp, was in Savannah, Georgia, and we were sort of working in parallel paths, didn't know each other at all on this work. And when the first bill, House Bill 731, was dropped in the House, she read about it in the paper and reached out, and that was the beginning of what I would say now is a great friendship and strong work through the past few years and going forward. But anyway, Ron Stevens, Chairman Stevens, was hoping to join us this morning, and Rules Committee happened. He's on the Rules Committee, and that is the started meeting, and he is not going to be able to be here and sent his apologies for that. With that, Adele, unless you've got a couple of anything to say, we have a panel of 4 legislators that's going to be moderated starting at 9:30. So we've got a couple of minutes here. We can take a short break. Adele, do you have anything to say? Otherwise, I'd say let's take a 5-minute break, but please don't leave us, everybody. Maybe refresh your coffee and take a bathroom break and come right back.
Yeah, I think a bio break is a great idea. I know I will stand up and stretch my legs and maybe refresh my coffee. So if y'all like, we'll take a 5-minute break and meet back at 9:25 to get prepared for our fabulous panel. And thank you for joining us for this first hour programming. Can't wait to see what's next.
So 5-minute bio break. Give a welcome to Chairman Ron Stevens, who has just joined us. Chairman Stevens, are you able to come on camera? And I'm looking for you on my screen of attendees. One moment, please. There you are. Let me spotlight you for everyone. Give me just a second. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Grateful to have you here. I've already told the group about your long-term support for Georgia Stomp. Georgia State Representative Ron Stevens represents the 164th district, where he served for 24 years. And we would like to hear from you briefly this morning. If you've got a moment, we appreciate you joining us.
Sure. Year after year, we put in the bill that exempts sales tax from all of these products, and we've tried to make them medical devices, which are of course exempt from sales tax. We have the Speaker Pro Tem has gone in and done something that probably is a little better, quite honestly. And we've budgeted through our state budget that we put in these products in the schools and in areas where actually people can use them. So we've gone down that path, but it is still an area that we need to work on. So from that point of view, it's still in the Ways and Means Committee, and we're still working on it to see if we can get it done.
Do you have any suggestions or ideas for us of how to get any movement there in the Ways and Means?
I don't. It seems like we've, there are those in leadership that believe we've taken care of the problem by funding the issue, if you will, and placing them in the schools and in areas where those people that can't afford the product. So we've gone out and spent probably as much money, if not more, than on the budgeted item of what we would have lost in tax revenue. So it makes more sense, quite honestly, to me, and make sure that the folks that can't afford the products have the products. But the truth is they don't need to be taxed anyway. So we're still going to work on the issue. It's just a matter of people need to lobby the folks that are on the Ways and Means Committee, see if we can get it done.
Thank you. And we have appreciated your support for this work over the last almost 4 years now. I know you know that we see a difference between the equity issue of the tax being on something that women have no choice about and is a medical necessity, different from the period poverty issue. And you have helped to make those points and appreciate that. Anyone else in the chat real quick before Chairman Stevens needs to go? Have any questions? Adele? I see a thank you and lots of.
Chairman,
go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you so much as someone who formerly had you as my state representative when I was over in Savannah. We've just so appreciated the opportunity to build a relationship with you and get to know you and have you support us on this issue. And your counsel is really appreciated. We are going to be mobilizing advocates a little bit later in emailing and seeing how to call their folks who are on the Ways and Means Committee. So we will definitely take your words to heart and put that to action. But we're just so grateful for your work, not only on this issue, but on so many of the other things that you do on behalf of Georgians. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adele.
Thank you for joining us. Stay safe up there at the Capitol. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
All righty. All right, well, we'll come back. We have got a panel of legislators coming up in just a moment, but I want to introduce the moderator for this panel. We've already talked about what a great, how fortunate we are at the Georgia STOMP board to have so many wonderful people working on this, and this next person is no exception. Dominique Holloman currently serves as the membership chair of the inaugural board of Georgia STOMP. Dominique is past chair of the junior leagues of the Georgia State Political Affairs Committee, which was an inaugural coalition member of Georgia STOMP in the very first year. And so Dominique has been a part of this work since the very beginning. She is also past president of the Junior League of Douglas County, and during her term, she co-created Candid Conversations, which I mentioned earlier. Dominique holds 4 degrees from the University of Georgia, including a Juris Doctorate. And we are grateful that she is here today to moderate the panel of legislators, and I'll turn it over to her and let her take it from there and then introduce them.
Good morning, everyone. It's always my pleasure to be with those of us who are passionate about this topic. I'd like to thank you for making time this morning to learn more about what's going on in our state capitol. And I'm so thrilled that we have such a wonderful group of legislators joining us this morning. We have Representative Debbie Buckner representing House District 137, Representative Kim Schofield, representing House District 60, Representative Carolyn Hughley, representing House District 136, and Senator Tanya Anderson, representing Senate District 43. Representatives and Senator, I would like to give each of you a minute to formally introduce yourselves and share with our attendees what you would like them to know about you. And then I have some questions that we'll get into. So if we'll start with Representative Buckner.
Well, I was going to just say right now, I'm looking in the chat and I'm going to check my emails to make sure there's not looking for Zoom links, Dominique. But right now we are honored to just have Representative Kim Schofield with us right now. So maybe start a conversation with her, and as the others join, we can add each of them. So
my apologies. I'm always thrilled to be in the company of Representative Schofield. I know her personally and professionally. So we, of course, can have a thrilling conversation about what's going on right now. So Representative Schofield, go ahead and share with our attendees more about you. I shared your House district, but let's talk more about who you are as a legislator and in your professional life as well.
All right. Thank you, Dominique. And it's good to see everyone. I've been chatting in the chat box with some of my friends I hadn't seen in a while. Thank you, Claire, and to Georgia STOMP for all the work that you're doing. I'm State Representative Kim Schofield, representing parts of East Point, College Park, Forest Park, Southeast Atlanta, Hateville, and soon to be Union City. Because I'm state rep, I represent everybody on this phone. I came into the space in 2017 in a special election, but one of the things that I discovered as I was campaigning and talking to some of my schools, I work in healthcare. As many of you know, I'm a lupus researcher with Emory University. We were working on a project with lupus and the school nurses. And I started talking to them about their biggest challenge. And what they told me in 2017 was that it was girls not going to school or missing school because of the lack of period products. And I really did take that to heart because I had no clue the depth of the crises that we were facing. And so working on an initiative called Got You Covered, Period, was an initiative that I started in 2018 that not only raises awareness and supplies products, but to work on policies that help get us over the hump. So Georgia's STOMP was a breath of fresh air, knowing in the work that that they had been doing and continue to do. And so I'm just pleased to know that we've made significant strides and we have a long way to go. Listen, if we don't speak up and out, they're dragging their feet, basically. I understand that, it's in ways and means, but you got to look at the control of the leadership, predominantly men. And so if they don't see it's real and they don't know the economic burden that they've paid just in their own households, that's where we come in and have to get stronger as advocates. I'll stop there.
Well, you kind of answered all the questions that I have, but we'll dig a little bit. We'll dig a little bit deeper. And I never heard the story about how you came to the work around menstrual equity and period poverty. And what I found is that for many of us, it's been quite accidental how you were speaking with school nurses about lupus, but then this topic came up. And what we found through candid conversations is that we really haven't taken time to think about access, because we really just don't talk about menstruation enough amongst ourselves or publicly. So I'm really, I'm appreciative of hearing how you came to this work, and like many of us, you kind of stumbled across it, but saw the need and are fighting for the issue. You mentioned Got You Covered, Period. Let's talk a little bit more about that initiative and some other work that you've done or plan to do.
Right. So thank you, Dominique. So, Got You Covered, Period came about because I was, as I was talking to the school nurses, one of the students came in and she said, tell her your story. And this young lady was a sophomore who had 3 other siblings, whose mom worked at a fast food restaurant. And she said, basically, when we get on our cycle and we bleed very heavily, one of us has to miss school because we don't have enough products to go. And I'm like, what? She said, yeah. She said, and that in and of itself, we don't want to go to school where we're afraid to, of the mishaps. We don't want to go to school knowing that we're the smell. So there was all these stigmas. And I'm like, this is 2018. What are we doing? So I started to raise awareness. I have 30 schools in my district, and I try to do something in every one of my schools. Well, this project became so massive that it was 24,000 products that I needed to deliver every month to the school. Now, I don't know, people on this phone know that $14,000 to $17,000 here at the legislature is not going to get you to pay all this stuff for period products. And so that's how it started. I went and I started talking to other legislators, and here's what they said to me. Oh, well, that doesn't happen in my district. I'm like, oh, girls don't get on, they don't have the period. Well, parents should know that this is something that comes up. I'm like, wow. Now, so this initiative is ongoing, working with, but the product drives are one thing. It does not really unmask the issue and the product. That's just that's the extension of, but in order for us to empower people to take back their voice, and women in particular, we need to legislate and push this to the brinks. We can get mad and you say you want to step on people's toes and you don't want to, but guess what? If I don't step on your toes, you will not cry ouch. And this is something that's not going to go away. So me waiting for you to pass something that should have been done. Yeah, I understand how the sausage gets made up here. But if you don't start coming to the table and saying, listen, we're women who bleed, and everybody bleeds in your house if you're a woman, if we don't start pushing the envelope and making them uncomfortable, then this is going to always be stuck in ways and means. So that's what my initiative was about. It's about empowering the people to use their voice, and the products of which is the way that we do it.
And I'm glad that you brought up the reaction that you received from other legislators when you spoke with them, because I know on the local level, within my junior league, when we spoke with our school board representatives, this was probably 2019, they were unaware too. And so this is definitely an issue that we find that people in positions of power just lack knowledge.
Well, Dominique, they lack knowledge because most of us are old. It's been a long time, and these men the men don't still want to hear it. You know, I asked the question one day, well, how many of you have wives and mothers and daughters? They raised their hand. I'm like, and how many of you have ever been asked to go to the store and buy their products? They're like, oh my God. I'm like, well, then be quiet. We can have the conversation now where everybody's used to it. Right. You know, let's stop giving people a pass. You're big enough to, as if you were a woman, we would tell you, pull up your big girl panties. I'm gonna tell these men, stop pulling up your big girl boxers. Not big girl, but big boy boxers. Right. We have to have the conversation. We need to move this forward. Now you have a governor that has 3 daughters. You're telling me that he doesn't know what period poverty is? Come on now. Or, well, he doesn't, but he doesn't know he may not even know the cost associated with this. But what we want to do is we really need to start talking to the legislators' wives and get them more involved. Those are my action items for us.
Okay. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, they do have a legislator spouse lunch at some point during session. So there is opportunity. I don't know if they will have it this year, but there's opportunity to connect with the spouses of legislators and share issues with them. Now, you've spoken about some barriers and hurdles. One, we've talked about lack of knowledge. We've talked about possibly not wanting to have knowledge. We've talked about predominantly men in control and not thinking about these issues. What are some other barriers or hurdles that you see and ways that we can overcome those as we move forward in this?
Well, it's the lack of education. It's a lack of education within the schools when we talk about menstrual equity. Again, these are the conversations that we do not have. And so I love candid conversations. It's been a game changer in this space to recognize the stories and hear the testimonies, good, bad, and ugly, on how you came to learn. The body shaming, it's empowering young people. We have a lot of organizations that are doing good things, but I really think to move the needle, we need to come back with a stronger voice and sense of purpose. I mean, if not now, when? You know, time, there's no time limit, because once a month we're gonna visit you, whether we want to or not. And if we have to keep talking about it in the media, putting it out to the legislators, getting their wives involved, it's discriminatory on many levels. But we need to stop taking the careful and safe route. Either they're going to pass it or they're not. We understand that it's the carrot and the stick. If you take it out of the budget, then we're going to go ballistic. I'm keep it moving, Kim. I'm a little radical.
I know you are. That's why I appreciate you.
I only had 1 cup of coffee today. I only had 1 cup.
Well, are there any attendees that have questions for Representative Schofield? If you do, I'm sorry. I didn't say previously before we got started. I just enjoy talking with her so much. I should have backed up and said, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Representative Buckner has just joined us. So while you think of questions to drop in the chat, let's bring her into this conversation.
I'm looking for her on my screen. Give me just a moment. Welcome.
Okay.
Representative Buckner, and I'll add you if you want to come on camera. I don't know if you can. I can't show you on the screen, I don't think, if you're not on camera.
Representative Schofield, I'd love to lobby a question your way, and I'm just so grateful for your time here with us this morning and all the work that you do. I would say, what strategies have you seen? I loved your comment about going ballistic, because sometimes I just feel like I'm going to lose my mind if we don't make more progress in this area. And so, but what tactics have you seen be successful in other work that you've been successful in? And how can we apply those lessons learned to the space of menstrual equity?
So great question, Adele. This summer, I have a group of interns that put together a week-long event of menstrual equity, period poverty. So the first day we had a legislative roundtable from other legislators across the country, including Congresswoman Meng, who is really pushing menstrual equity and period poverty. And what she said is true, is that we've got to create this space where economically, where you hit them in the pocket. So if they realize how much money that they've spent on products over the years, that's one way to get them to the table to understand, because they're not going to realize that the cost of menstruating over the years takes its toll on the budget. She talked about making sure that, and other states like Louisiana have passed it as well. And it was a tough hurdle, but it was the advocacies that pushed this, the advocates that pushed this to get it moving by talking to the moms, getting some champion allies, the men to stand up with us. And so I think, those are the things, but it was a tough battle. And Amy Freeman in Louisiana, my good friend, and was the Seattle, Washington, or Portland up there, another good friend of mine. They have worked to get this passed. So other states have gone in and taken the tax off, but it's got to be a bipartisan issue.
Representative Buckner, are you with us on the phone this morning?
She's still having issues joining. We can take another question while we wait.
Yes.
Okay. One question we had from Dia is, Representative Schofield, do you have any advice for building grassroots efforts with school districts? So you mentioned you have 30 schools in your legislative district. How have you built relationships with them?
Talk to them. Go talk to the school nurses. They need your help. A lot of them were buying these products out of their own pockets. And so I would say, to build relationships with them, go talk to your school nurses, talk to the health teachers, and say, hey, we'd like your help in supporting stopping the tax on menstrual products. I'm sorry, I have the bill number here somewhere, but we've got it. And then the other thing is to get students involved. If you guys want to really see this, ramp up the student participation. These girls start, I'm not going to put it back on Dominique, but start having these candid conversations within your schools and your districts and everything. These girls get fired up about this because most of the students don't know that this is going on with the tax, but they want to. This is how you start training grassroots advocates. This is how you get college students. This impacts everyone. Connect with some of the other grassroots organizations that are already doing this work. You've got to elevate the conversation. If all we're doing is talking amongst each other, we really are not getting anything done but rehashing. You got to get this out. Who just told me? Somebody just told me yesterday they had a conversation. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, we've got to see something on. And Georgia Stomp and all the grassroots, you're doing a great job. But I just was a little taken aback with the chair, and I love Ron Stevens. I love him, and I think he is committed to doing that. But he's not the driver of those that are holding this up. So we've got to push them. I'm going to find out who's on Ways and Means, and I'm going to go talk to everybody I can and ask them what's the status, and I'll do it with a smile in a very polite way. Claire and Debbie Buckner, Representative Buckner.
I would never tell you how to advocate, Representative Schofield.
Do it in a very nice way. I won't give them some supplies. I
do think Representative Buckner has joined us by phone. She was at another meeting this morning and stepped out. Debbie, I know you can hear us. Can we hear you now?
I don't know. Let me know.
We can.
Can you hear this?
So
yes,
you said,
finally. Yes, so they
Kim, you did a great job.
like contacting Cooper.
So
Representative Schofield, you were doing a great job on those answers.
well, Representative Buckner, we want to get you in this conversation as well and ask you some of the things that we've been discussing with Representative Schofield. Can you take a moment to tell us how you came to this work? What is driving your passion behind it and some of the things that you've done in this space?
Originally, my career was working as a public health educator for the health department in West Central Georgia, and we see a lot of poverty in that part of the state. And what really struck me when I started hearing about the groups that were working on poverty, period poverty across the state, was the fact that it was causing young people to miss school. And I thought, you know, we as women, we already have a hard time playing catch up to the world around us, and it being sort of favoring men more than women in the work world and all. And for us to not be able to go to school because we don't have basic human needs met with supplies that were needed at that time of the month, it's just incredibly unfair, and it just seemed awful for America to be in that position. And so I thought, well, let's just look and see what we can do to correct this at every level possible.
We know that you have been heavily involved in the work of Georgia STOMP, almost two from the beginning. So let's talk about some barriers that you've seen or hurdles since you've been in this space. What do you think the biggest hurdle is?
I think the biggest hurdle is the fact that people think that it's not enough money to talk about, but it is to the people that don't have it and need it. I think that it's embarrassment for some people, and they don't want to, they'd just rather not deal with it and talk about it because they're embarrassed. And I think that's kind of silly because it's just a natural human occurrence like everything else. And we don't need to be embarrassed by that. We need to deal with it.
And then we've also had a conversation about the men in our lives, whether personally or professionally. What do you think is a barrier with regards to men getting a grasp on this subject?
I still think that goes back to the fact that they are very much embarrassed by it. They just would. The whole reason that we're having to pay a tax on period products in Georgia is twofold. Men were in the room when that tax was removed, and no women, and they didn't think about it. And if they had, they wouldn't have talked about it. And that is a direct quote from two of the men that were in the room years ago when they took the tax off groceries. So I think we have not helped them move past that mindset.
I agree. Are there any questions for Representative Buckner or Representative Schofield? I know y'all have been really active in the chat as I'm monitoring it. Do we have any additional questions? Or any comments that you would like to share with our two representatives?
We've had a few great comments about how can folks get more involved. We've had some comments about success that folks have had about having candid conversations with school principals at schools in different districts, like in Cobb Marietta. So thanks, Monique, for sharing that. We've also had some folks ask how they can find out who's on the Ways and Means Committee. And so we've shared a link to that and then talked about how we'll be going over some tools following this panel conversation. If there are any other questions, though, please feel free to share those in the chat. Claire and I are monitoring them as they go along. Thanks, Dominique.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we'll—
Dominique,
go ahead.
This is Debbie, and I was just wondering if I could just say, the group has done such amazing work. I'm so proud of everything that's been accomplished. And I think this last thing of removing the taxes was always the hardest and will continue to be hard work. But I do believe this is the year we can afford it in this state. And I think now is the time for you to call every senator, every representative that you know or hope to know, and let them know that you want this. Let them know that it is needed and necessary, and you know that you'll hold people accountable for how they treat women on this issue, not in a mean, threatening kind of way, but you know that how they respond to this is important and a very telling sign of how they respond to women's issues in general. But thank you for what you've done.
Oh, we thank you. Claire, did you want to give
I
some
was just
closing
going to say,
remarks?
I know Representative Schofield had to go to session, and I'm sure that Representative Buckner needs to get there as well. It begins at 10, but we want to thank you. And Dominique may have done this, but for your leadership in this work since the very beginning and continuing to help us know how to advocate in the state and move this forward. And I think your last comment is an excellent transition to what we're doing next. And that's some hands-on advocacy that we've are enabled to do because of the help of Ignite on this call. So thank you, Representative Buckner, and we will stay in touch and listen to hear from you at any suggestions you ever have of what we can do to move this forward. Dominique, thanks for leading that section. And I'm going to now introduce Adele Stewart, who you've already heard me talk about a little bit. And she is co-chair of Georgia STOMP and is going to lead us through some direct advocacy now. And stick with us, because if we were at the Capitol, this is where we'd be sending you out. Adele, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so jazzed and ready to put some of those strategies into action that we just heard about from Representative Schofield, Buckner, and then Chairman Stevens. So thank you again to all of them and to Dominique for leading such a great discussion. We are going to, as Claire said, virtually start advocating. So this is the point where if you've been to a Capitol Day before, we would all lace up our shoes and go down to the ropes and actually chat with some of our elected officials as we try to drive these initiatives forward. Claire went over our priorities for this year, and we actually have 2 online tools that all of us will be able to, in real time, advocate on those topics. And so the first one that I am going to cover is a tool that's going to help us send some emails and contact elected officials about the House Bill 810, which is the bill to eliminate the sales tax on menstrual products. So I'm sharing my screen as of right now. Can everybody see my screen? Get a thumbs up or 2. That's good. Okay, awesome. Thanks, y'all. So I've just dropped the link into the chat. And what you'll see when you land on this page is a description of House Bill 810. Thank you so much to Ignite for providing this fantastic resource. It is fabulous. So you get a brief introduction to the bill itself. Give you all a few minutes to work on that independently. Again, this is just like what we would do if we were to go down and work the ropes. What I'd like for you to do is work on the platform to address the tampon tax, and then also just dropped in the link to address the budget items for menstrual products in schools. And so if you can just drop in the chat when you're done, we will keep track of, we're not going to keep track of it, but we would love to be able to see everybody going out and actually actively advocating right now, even while we are not under the gold dome. I'm going to do the education one at the moment. If you have any questions at all, or if you're having any issues with the platform, let us know. We've got a lot of smart folks here to help troubleshoot.
Yeah, and that is a good point. If you got any questions about talking points or anything to say, or want to just clarify anything that we talked about or one of the legislators talked about during the session, now's a good time. We've allowed about 15-20 minutes right now for advocacy. it doesn't do any good for us to all come together and talk about this if we don't reach out and let the folks that need to hear from us know. So this is probably the most important part of the meeting right now. Got a retweet from Texas.
All right, when I was just able to focus, I just went in, completed my email. You'll know my tweet's gone out. So now I'm going to move on to the funding for the Department of Education and Department of Public Health. And I'll let you know when I'm done with mine.
And on this one, you may want to know that Terry England is the chair of the House Appropriations Committee. So that's the committee that decides on the budget line items. And Chairman Todd Jones is the chair of the subcommittee that sets the education budget, which is a part of the Appropriations Committee. And similarly, Chairman Butch Harris is the chair of the Health Committee. And so that's why these specific names are on this message. They're who we're reaching out to right now to ask to add the line item additions. And again, if y'all got any questions, please put them in the chat or shout them out.
All right, so I'm just finishing up my email to advocate for an increase in funding for the Department of Education, Department of Public Health. I'm going to go ahead and send that. And now I'm ready to actually tweet it out.
also, Adele, I don't know if you want to show this, but if you want to make it competitive, you can actually, I can actually see which county has taken the most action throughout the entire state. And I can even show you the map. Here, let me
That is
screen
so
share.
cool. Yeah, I would love to see that. That's
So
amazing.
this is for this bill. Fulton is leading the way with the most activities. And so, yeah, what about, well, hopefully we can get the rest of the state up and going. But yeah, this is actually, I love watching this whenever people are taking actions. I'm like, ooh, and I can even, like, whenever we have national bills, I can even look at like the entire country. I'm like, oh, what's happening across the country? But yeah, so this is the state of Georgia, and yeah, a lot of activities are happening here, a few in Jones block, but yes, that's
Jocelyn,
what's happening. Mhm.
Jocelyn, please introduce yourself and tell who you
Oh,
are for
yes,
tonight,
yes.
please.
And I'm not on video because I'm still in my PJ. I am actually in California.
It's very early for Jocelyn.
It was. I have been yeah, it is very early. I am the legislative advocacy director for Ignite National. So but yeah, I'm happy to be here. Early, but very happy to be here, and hearing from the panelists were phenomenal, especially the representatives. It's what a great way to start my morning. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the partnership and being part of Georgia Stomp.
We're so grateful. Claire, I'd love, so my talking point for the Department of Education and Department of Public Health, let me come back on video, sorry. And my talking points really dealt with, that I added to the email, dealt with the fact that we've heard so much from school nurses about how this money actually impacts not just their students, but also themselves, that oftentimes when schools are not providing menstrual products to students, the nurses are actually covering it out of their own pockets. And we all know how stretched thin school nurses are this year and how critical it is that we do everything we can to help them do their jobs. And so that's one thing that I talked about when I was customizing my email. Claire, I'd love to know what talking point you chose to talk about when you were crafting your own, so that maybe some of the folks who are here today can learn from what we chose to prioritize.
I put in there more focused on the fifth graders and what we learned back from school nurses in the survey this year related to that so many of them, 80% of them, feel like this funding needs to be available for fifth graders. So I think that's an important point for expanding the funding that we actually we get, I mean, and Adele, your point was excellent, because we get, and I don't have the number in front of me, but I believe it was like 58, 59% of the time when when products aren't provided by school systems or by the state, that school nurses and other administrators at schools buy these out of their pockets. We have phenomenal work that goes on in the state, and I know there are other organizations on this call right now. New organization down in Bullock County, I saw you're down there. But doing work across the state, providing products for schools, but it's not in every county and it's not in every school. And so it oftentimes falls on school nurses to do this.
I think one thing that we hear a lot from advocates and then from menstruators, and for instance, in our critical conversation or candid conversations, excuse me, but then also in the data, we see that folks are getting their periods earlier and earlier. And so in order to ensure that we're covering the needs of all menstruators, we've got to get those products in there for fifth and even fourth and sometimes third grade students, at least making them available in the schools, in the elementary schools. So I love that you brought that up, Claire, and that really is the crux of what we're advocating for this year. So I have just tweeted and done my email, so I am going to put done in the chat. I hope that you all will do the same as soon as you've been able to complete your own advocacy using this fantastic tool. Jocelyn, thank you so much for showing the data. That was amazing to see our different nexuses across the state. And I can't wait to see what it looks like maybe at end of day, because we know that we have representation on this call from all across the state of Georgia.
We'll give everybody just a minute more to finish up with that. I was finishing up one myself.
I also want to take the chance to encourage you, if you have a spare moment and you can supplement your email or your tweet with a phone call, that is such an amazing thing to do, to actually have someone hear your voice when you call into an elected official's office. And so please, have your talking points in front of you and give a ring to maybe Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones or Chairman Shaw Blackman and ask them about what can be done to move House Bill 810 or to increase the funding for the Department of Education and Department of Public Health. These are folks who are have the power to make those changes and really address period poverty and menstrual equity in Georgia.
And
with that, I'm going to go. Yeah, go ahead, Claire.
They're all in session right now, so if you call, you'll get one of their nice administrative assistants, and they're all wonderful to work with and very, are very helpful. So you'll get a friendly voice on the other side of the call. With that, I think I'm going to take Adele off spotlight, and we are coming down to the end of the time, and we appreciate everyone staying with us. We've had a great group this morning. What an excellent conversation with our representatives that have joined us. I want to share one graphic here at the end and give you some contact information for us. If you don't have it yet, let's stay connected going forward. If you're not on our email list, by signing up today for this, you will be added to our email list, but you can stay connected to us through all the traditional social media channels and all. We will, after this, be emailing out a copy of the resolution that was read this morning from the House. And if you've got some time this morning, you can jump off this and jump on the live stream of the session, and you may be able to hear that resolution still being read. I'm not exactly sure what time. If not, they record those and you can go back and find it later today or tomorrow, and zoom ahead and see if you can find where that resolution is going to be read. We will send out these advocacy links in a follow-up email, and you can make those phone calls. Georgia Stomp sends out an email every Tuesday during legislative session, Tax-Free Tuesday. And if we've got any specific focuses or messages different than the general messages we've done today, that's where you can hear about them, is in Tax-Free Tuesdays. So thank you for joining us today. We have any other questions in the chat or anything? If not, I am looking. We appreciate this partnership with Ignite National today, and for the sharing of their resources, and the fact that they are a member of Georgia Stomp here in the state, and working with Lauren and Christina and others that are active in the state has just been a wonderful partnership. And thank you to Jocelyn Yao and everybody in that organization. So we will see y'all in the future. Keep advocating and keep speaking up for menstrual equity. All the best.
Thanks, everybody.